Hey everybody, welcome back to the Y Project. Today we have a special guest, Mr. Ramin. Hello.
Hi everyone.
I need more
Hey,
people
if people don't know you yet, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
now, Daddy.
Yeah, my name is Mr. Ramin. I'm the assistant principal for both the junior high and the high school. In the background, you hear my 3-year-old son Henry and my 5-year-old daughter Benny, and they're being mostly good this morning. But if you hear some talking in the background, it's just those two.
They're pretty cute.
They are pretty. Well, they look like mommy. That's why. That's why they're cute. This is my spotlight. All right, here, really quick.
I just have old-fashioned person.
Okay. I'm not sure what old-fashioned person means, but that's what they're dressed up as right now.
I love it. Someday I'd love to hear and understand what she was thinking. Anyway, well, let's dive right in. Tell us kind of about how you became an assistant principal and what your story was and what keeps you motivated coming back to Baker every day.
Yeah. If you asked me, 20 years ago, would I ever be a teacher? I'd say no. And if you asked me 5, even maybe 3 years ago, if I wanted to be an administrator, I probably would have said no. But for a lot of folks, you kind of have a sense of, when you're in high school and college, hey, this is what I'm going to do. But then life happens. And so for me, when I left college, I went right to work. I worked in newspapers. I was a copy editor for a couple of daily newspapers. And I was in Milwaukee, Wisconsin during 9/11. And it was a fascinating experience being a journalist at that time. Because we were so close to the Chicago metro area, and of course the attacks were in 2 big metro areas back east, and there's everyone absolutely felt that things had changed. And then for me, on a personal level, it really got me starting to think about, okay, when something like this, when a huge event happens, where do I want to be? And I kept coming back to I wanted to help people. I wanted to help. A little quieter, okay, sweet pea? So the 2 things that crossed my mind were one, that was really the impetus for me joining the U.S. Navy. And the second thing is I couldn't help but think, I was about to say something life-changing. I was going to change the world with what I was about to say. And I lost it all. Can you go back to coloring? Go back to coloring. I'm sorry. The second thing is I started thinking more and more about the things that influenced me the most when I was a young person. Absolutely, I kept thinking about teachers.
Daddy, look at the fire engine.
I love that fire engine. So when we were in Milwaukee at the time, they had it's sort of like the career and technical education here, where if you had a certain number of professional hours, you could go into a classroom and essentially teach.
Fire engine.
So I started teaching at a public high school right there in Milwaukee, doing public speaking. I was the newspaper advisor. I did that for a couple of years. And then when we went to Okinawa, Japan, I did the same thing at Department of Defense School. And
Daddy, this is the water.
no mas.
This is the fire
You're taking it too
hydrant.
far. Okay.
This is the fire hydrant.
Let's stop for just a moment. Sorry, Emily.
That's okay. I paused the recording, so we're good.
It's fine. It's fine. So, so it was just kind of. I started teaching in a role where I wasn't a certificated teacher. Just at the time, I was in a couple of places where if you had certain professional experience, you could step into a teaching role. And then I joined the U.S. Navy Reserve. And those 2 things simultaneous, even though military and education are different in a lot of ways, they're really the same, where it's this thing bigger than yourself. It was a train that's been running. It'll run before you get there. It'll keep running after you get off. You're just kind of getting on and maintaining, helping the train run smoothly as you move along. It really solidified for me that what I like most is helping people. So when we came back to the United States, I went to the University of Oregon and I went into the teacher ed program to actually get my teaching certification. So even though it was kind of peculiar because I had 5 years of classroom experience, I was coaching baseball. Yeah, I knew I actually did want to become a certificated teacher. So I did that when I came back. And then, so for the last 9 years, I was in the Burlington Edison district. And about, well, it was 5 years ago. It was 5 years ago. I was back from my last deployment in the Navy, where I was in Afghanistan. And I gotta stop. Someone's trying to get something out of the cupboards. Hold on. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
It's-
Hey, this is like authentic work from home life, right?
It's- and they're both good and they're wonderful. And the very moment you've got to kind of do something, all of a sudden they're no different than our kids at Mount Baker. And I love you and I miss you all. But heavens, every time we're trying to get something done, you decide it's a good time to be silly.
Yep. So
I'm sure I was saying something important. So when I came back from my last deployment, I left when Benny was only 10 months old. So I knew, because I was gone for 13 months, I knew when I came back, I was probably going to leave the Navy because I couldn't do that again. I couldn't be away from her again. But when I came back, one of the things I realized during my last deployment is although I loved teaching, what I was really enjoying the most about my Navy time was having a lot of different things to do. So I started talking to some friends of mine who had been teachers and became administrators, talking to principals I had at Burlington Edison. And, it was a slow burn for a couple of years, really thinking about whether or not I wanted to do it. But then when I decided, I never went back. The thing I like about being an administrator is every day is different and there's all these different things. It's too much to do and you can't always do them as well as you would like to do. But you have these moments where you can make a student's life a little bit better. You have a moment where you can help a parent with something. And the thing I enjoy the most is actually doing something that helps a teacher. Because being a teacher is this extraordinary job where you are given so much responsibility, and a lot of the time you're kind of on an island. You're a little isolated during the day, and it's frightening for a teacher, especially the teachers like the ones at Mount Baker who care so much. They put so much pressure on themselves. So if there's just one little thing that I can do, or Mr. Duran or Mr. Wright can do that makes things just a little bit easier for them, it's a really good feeling. Yeah, I never expected to be an administrator, and now that I'm in the role, it's a good fit.
yeah. I feel like that happens more often than not, where you never expect something to happen and then it does and it ends up being amazing, and that's kind of my story too. And I always knew I wanted to be a teacher, but not in this particular role. And so I can relate
Sure.
to
Yeah.
that as well, but I love it. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
love you are so available and so supportive and your door's always open, and I've definitely felt supported by you. So I really appreciate that.
And that's good to hear. One of the things that never goes away, whether you're a classroom teacher, a paraeducator, a coach, or administrator, is I think if something means a lot to you, you're consumed by self-doubt. And I think that's one of the things, it's so hard to convey, for those of you who are still 7th through 12th graders, and those of you who are going off post-graduation, I remember there was a time where I thought, man, I cannot wait until I'm older and I'm going to feel so much more confident and I'm going to know so much more and I'm going to have the answer. And then you discover that's not a real thing. And I have all kinds of self-doubt, being in a new role, being at a new school. But I've been so grateful that my new school is Baker. Because from the moment I started my interview process, from the moment I walked in that door to interview for the job pretty much a year ago. Baker folks have been nothing but warm and accommodating. And, when you know that people really care about their community and their kids and their students, then it's really easy to work hard for them. It's hard. I mean, it's really easy to work hard for someone who cares. That's, even if you don't get it right, just working hard for someone who really cares about what they're doing is pretty easy.
Yeah. That's a really good point. It's a good food for thought quote. I see it like posted somewhere online. Andy Ramin, 2020. That's awesome. Well, hey, what's a word of encouragement you have, or
Yeah.
maybe a challenge that you have for people during this time?
Well, I don't have a challenge. I think we're all challenged enough. I mean, I've yet to come across anyone, whether they're 13 or 63, who has said, "Oh, you know what? My life is easier right now." So I think the challenge is already there, and it's kind of now how we're dealing with it. I think one of the things that I've had to remind myself is, in this environment where we're not with each other as much, it is so easy to be consumed about the things that you're worried about or the struggles that you have, and forget about all of the things that other people are dealing with. And I remember being young and being in high school, and I know a lot of our Mount Baker students feel this right now. It's so easy to just be focused on the little world that you're in, and kind of forget that everyone else is dealing with their own things. And I always like the analogy of the duck. Have you ever heard the duck analogy? Mm-hmm. So it's the idea of, like, you go to a pond and you see the ducks floating along the surface of the pond, and they always look so graceful, so fluid. But then underneath the surface of that pond, they have to paddle, because the way their bodies are designed and with the hollow bones, the moment they stop paddling, they capsize. And so it's that nice analogy for when we see folks, they seem to have it together and everything is going so well. And it's easy to forget that everybody beneath the surface is just paddling furiously, just to stay afloat. So I think, my word of encouragement right now is give yourself a lot of grace. Each one of us is going through something that no one else that alive has gone through before. I mean, we can't ask our grandparents for advice on how to go through a pandemic. They didn't go through it either. So give yourself a lot of grace, and then give everyone around you a lot of grace. Your teachers are doing this for the first time. Our students are doing this for the first time. Our parents are doing this for the first time. So giving yourself and everyone else a lot of grace, that's my encouragement. And that's encouragement back to myself too, because it's easy to not give yourself and others grace.
Yeah.
Just like you guys giving me grace with Henry and Benny running around. I'm grateful.
Yeah, of course. It's like I said, it's very authentic and real. And I think it's good to just be like real and raw always. And so that's just part of it. But yeah, I never get sick of hearing give ourselves grace and give the people around us grace, because we always need to remember that. And it's easy to like hear it and be like, oh yeah, whatever. But to really like consume that is so important. And so it's good to just keep hearing it, because we like meditate on what we consume. And so if we can hear that enough, then we'll start to like really let it sink in.
Yeah. And it is funny how the things that we absolutely know are true, the things we absolutely know we should do, tend to also be the hardest. And it's like that for everybody. I mean, for everybody. We know giving grace, being kind to ourselves, but it's hard. It's hard. And that's one of the things I've loved so much about being at Baker. The adults, the teachers, the paraeducators, the counselors put so much pressure on themselves to give so much of themselves to the kids. And it's been an absolute pleasure. Even though this is not how I thought my first year at Baker was going to conclude, I honestly, I am very grateful to be at Baker right now. There's absolutely not a single district I would rather be in right now than this one. So I'm grateful.
Well, we're really grateful that you're here now and have been this whole year, and we hope that you continue for many, many, many years.
Yeah, me too. I'm good to go. I don't think the Mariners are going to draft me this spring. So.
Especially not this year. I don't even know if the season's happening.
Yeah. So
That wouldn't be good. Or maybe it would be. Hey, we'll draft you. You don't have to do a thing. You just have to say.
There you go.
All right. Well, thank you so much
Thanks,
for
Ms.
taking
Schwab.
your
Thanks,
time to
Emily.
do
You
this.
bet.
And
Yeah.
it's great to see you.
All right. I'm going to go make lunch now. Bye,
Okay.
guys. All right. I miss you all.
Bye.